Good afternoon, everyone. Happy No More Donald Trump Day.
Yay!
And welcome to this News Agenda Inauguration Special with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I'm joined by some very special guests, the specialist guests. We have the very stable genius of Emma Kennedy.
That's me.
That's her. She's not his type of woman. We have the dangerous socialist, that is Mark Steele. And the perfect physical specimen of Mr. Rory Bremner. We did ask the little rocket man Kim Jong-un, but he was too busy putting a relative through an office shredder. And also, I'm afraid, great world leader Vladimir Putin sent his apologies and asked his troll army to join us in the comments instead. So do say hello to them if you see any of them. Now, we're going to take you through the best presidential inauguration in history because it shows that even undiagnosed maniacs have to bow to democracy eventually. And we're going to answer your questions. So dig into the comments below, ask us whatever's on your mind. We'll do our best to answer it for you. This is the People's News Agenda, and we are going to make the news great again, end this horrible cycle of a hellscape that we've been in for the past 4 years. So what have we got? We've got someone backstage who's going to show us now a live stream, which is coming from the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies of all ridiculously pompous names.
Hang on, it's Professor Chris Whitty.
Probably not Professor Chris Whitty, but who knows in the world we're in. And as we can see at the moment, there's not an awful lot going on. They're having some prayers. They are having a chat. There's a priest with a very, very cold red nose with a big drip forming on the end of it, and he's having a chat to them about stuff. So we're expecting the swearing in to happen in about half an hour, 12 noon on the button. And Kamala Harris is going to be sworn in first as vice president because this is the way it was developed and established in the States. There's his red nose. Look at that. Poor guy. Blow it. They want to have a vice president always in office just in case something happens in the millisecond between the first president losing power and the next one accepting it. So Kamala comes first, and then Joe Biden will do his bit, and then Lady Gaga will have a bit of a warble at us. And Sleepy Joe, at some point, will then be nudged awake. They'll take the blanket off his knees and ask him to step forward and swear on the Bible to do this job that he's tried 3 times to get so far, and finally managed it because the last guy was an unregistered lunatic, basically. And he'll become the 46th president of the United States. So what do we think's going to happen? Rory, take us through it. Do you think that Joe Biden's going to have left his Zimmer frame at home? Will he have taken his pills?
I hope so. I think he must be. He's on drugs. Look at the crowds. There's hardly anybody there. They won't show you that. They won't show there's hardly anybody there. The streets are deserted. I think already the Trumps have missed a chance. If you saw the motorcades early on, I mean, wouldn't it have been great if they'd have been in the last one in the motorcade in a big pink stretch with balloons hanging out of the back? Something really classy like that. But listen, remember the last inauguration. Look, there's nobody there. Look at the distance. Look at the distance. The last inauguration where the great moment was when George W. Bush and Hillary Clinton were leaving the stage together after the speech. And George W. Bush turned to Hillary Clinton and said, "That was some fairly weird stuff," except he used a different F word and a different S word. That's how it began. For George W. Bush to say that was some effing weird and I mean, it doesn't, that's how it started. And remember, we were probably thinking 4 years ago, how the hell did this happen? And now we know how it happens. And now we know how that ended. So it can only get better. There he is.
There he is. He's awake. Awake. Hooray! Sleepy Joe's with us. That's always a good start. Emma, do you think he's going to get through the inauguration process and the speech and everything without falling over or needing some kind of injection?
I think he is. I think anyone who's got the incomparable Dr. Jill by his side is going to breeze through anything.
He's literally married to a doctor.
I genuinely think that what not only America needs, but the world needs is Grandpa Joe right now. I think we just need someone who's a little bit slow, very kind, very empathetic. You could not get somebody who is the exact opposite of Donald Trump more than Joe Biden. And for that, he could be fast asleep, lying down, and I wouldn't care. As long as he just someone puts his hand on the Bible and he swears It's like, fine, go and take as many naps as you like. I like the fact that you seem to me like a man who just wants to be clipping his hedge. You crack on, Grandpa Joe.
He's going to be doing that. As soon as he's in the White House, he's going to make friends with that lawnmower boy.
Yes,
sorry, Rory.
So they could have elected Len Goodman. That's the kind of role model, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Mark, what do you reckon? Do you think Joe is going to be a powerhouse when he's in the White House?
Oh, I mean, well, he should play it for laughs, shouldn't he? He should get up and go, oh, what did I
Who is this?
It's Gaga. It's Gaga. Of course it's Gaga.
Understated.
Not wearing shellfish.
I wish she'd come out dressed as Donald Trump as the balloon blimp. That would have been amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what they need. They need to sort of go for it, and Biden needs to get up and go, oh, what did I come up here for?
Oh, wow.
All these Bibles are fiddly, and go for it. And then he needs to say, instead of all that, we thank the sort of all that. Nobody, everybody knows that's not what he's thinking. He should say, yes, you wanker, you've gone. It started with you going, lock her up, and it's going to end up with you in jail, you miserable psychopathic narcissist. I hope all the keys chink on the jail and you have to swap your tower for some snouts while you're in there.
I love the fact she looks like a vegetable that's been turned into a human by a witch in a Disney film.
Yeah, I love the fact her hair's a mess. I mean, God,
amazing.
what have you got to do for the day? Can we just turn the volume up on this? Let's listen, because she's got some pipes on her, this girl.
Hang on, it's the Masked Singer.
There she is.
Wow.
And a dove has taken a dive bomb onto her jacket. That was an ill-advised skirt, I think, as well, possibly. So she's singing the National Anthem, which is not quite as rousing as the British National Anthem, it's what we said. Sorry, it's the English one, isn't it? I'll upset the Scots and the Welsh now.
But the thing that I love about this the most is that Donald will be watching this, and this will be the bit that he hates the most. The fact that somebody like Gaga has turned up to do this, when I think Trump had somebody who'd basically failed in a reality TV show singing his...
He had a couple
Will
of...
he be watching? Do you think he'll be watching? He won't be watching. He'll be watching the shopping channel.
He will
be watching. I can absolutely guarantee he will be watching.
I don't think he'll be able to stay away, will he? Even when crowds were storming his capital only a couple of weeks ago, he was gripped by it and stood there staring at it. He's only obsessed with ratings and how many viewers people have. And like you say, Emma, at the last inauguration, he tried to get Elton John. Elton said, no, mates. He's been sued by the Rolling Stones for using his music. Only the village people were happy with him using his music, which is why he has concentrated on sticking with the gay anthems, because that's literally all he's been allowed to do legally, pretty much.
The great irony of Donald Trump is that the one thing that, as you rightly say, that he has been most bothered by is celebrities loving him and being on his side. And it's so crushing for him as the small man that he is that they are exactly the people who hate him the most now.
Yes, well, they always have. And this is a man, the president, when he 4 years ago, when he was stood here, Trump, and we're talking about him all the time, even though he's not bothered to turn up, but 4 years ago when he stood here, and the day after, he said that they were the biggest crowds ever in presidential history. He's obsessed by his approval ratings, and he is ending his term as president, his one term, with the lowest approval ratings of any president in history since the approval rating started in 1938. Rory, what do you think?
Here's the person saying, would the owner of car registration R65321 please move their car where they're causing an obstruction? My lip reading is not very good, but I think here's a goal.
In America, they wouldn't ask you to move it; they just blow it up.
But Mark, here's a goal. I'm assuming he's in Florida now already, because I mean, you see these announcements in Washington. They're saying, "Please welcome the 44th president of the United States, Barack Obama." And you love a bit of golf. And I'm down in Florida. Ivor Robson is saying, "On the tee from Queens, Donald Trump." and he'll be trying to get round another little golf course. He's only played 400 times in the last 4 years. So this is his shot. I think Emma's right there. I think he's watching every second.
Oh, he will.
Tim Coleman's right. Tim Coleman's right. It's got half curtains.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. This extraordinarily iconic, historic moment, one of the great moments of all history, that Tim Coleman is makes a comment about Lady Gaga's skirt vis-a-vis my curtains.
I think she's got about 5 people under there.
He's absolutely right.
Mark, what do you think Donald Trump's biggest achievement would have been in office?
Well, that is a thing, right? If you was to sort of,
Kamala.
Sorry. Sworn in.
Interrupt quickly. Kamala's being sworn in as VP now. She's being sworn in by Justice Sotomayor, who is the first woman of colour on the Supreme Court, and she's swearing in the first woman of colour as Vice President. So, I mean, Mark, in a way, that's an achievement, isn't it?
And that's fantastic. Of course it's brilliant, but there is a worry. There is 74 million people that still voted for this lunatic, and they don't even have the excuse of last time that, well, it's just because we're fed up with the way things were. Now they know he puts babies in cages and what have you, and he carried on being a maniac, even worse once he was president. So, and a huge number of those people do believe, despite there being no evidence whatsoever, that the whole thing was rigged. And they're quite bonkers, some of that 30, 40 million people. So I think this is brilliant, but there's quite a worry. 30, 40 million people, many of which in a country where you can go and buy RPG-7 grenades at the petrol garage. That's quite a worry, isn't it?
Yeah, there were 23 million gun sales in the US in the past year. That's one of Donald Trump's achievements, creating this situation where 23 million people wanted another gun because they've all got one already anyway. That was a
Kamala's now in charge.
Increase on last year, and those are only the legal ones.
Actually, do you know what I think that Donald's greatest legacy is going to be? The fact that he has been so dreadful and so awful that he has actually inadvertently saved democracy in America. And when you think about how many people came out to vote to get rid of him, it's quite something.
I think people are worried about Trumpism, and I think it's a question of whether America will suffer from long Trump, like long COVID, or if they've had a 4-year vaccination and they're now immune.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't think he's coming back.
I just thought mad tweets keep coming back up in the middle.
It's J-Lo. J-Lo approaches. Yes, bow your heads, one and all.
She's going to regret that outfit if she gets anywhere near red wine. What am I saying? J-Lo doesn't drink. She doesn't eat. She doesn't drink. She just exercises.
Again, just a reminder, the only people that Donald had at his inauguration singing was a tribute band and a reality TV show, Loser. Okay? J-Lo.
Knock it.
Who would we have here if we had a ceremony like this?
Well, who would Boris Johnson get?
We'd have Gary Barlow. We'd have Gary Barlow. You know we'd have Gary Barlow. That would be it. We'd have Gary Barlow. That's it.
We're guaranteed to get Gary Barlow no matter what.
Oh, in the past, God bless him, in the sort of 90s, the Labour Party used to get Blakey from on the buses to come out. Didn't they? You know, all right, you fucker. Oh, yeah, I saw him on tops of buses driving around. All right, you fucker. Oh, I can't stand you, fucker. I'm very happy.
What's he seeing?
Celebrity endorsement.
Now, Rory, Donald is probably in Florida as we speak, and we've already decided he's almost definitely watching this. What do you think is going through his teeny tiny mind?
It should have been me. It should have been me. He's probably taking notes for 4 years' time. He's thinking, okay, I've got to find somebody in a white coat. It must be eating away at him. Look at it. He's thinking, I could get older children than that, much older, bigger flags. He'll just be seething in a little pot of anger, won't he?
He probably will be. But this is Let's go back over this, right? Since 1797, when George Washington handed over power as president for the first time, John Adams, power has been handed over 44 times, okay? Most of them fairly peacefully. This is the most violent handover of power, although we're not seeing it today, obviously. But 6 people have missed an inauguration in that time, 6 presidents. One was Richard Nixon. Oh, J-Lo, shut up. One was Richard Nixon, because he was busy hiding after Gerald Ford took over. We had 1801, right? John Adams, who only did 1 term, 4 years after only the second inauguration, he went out, he snuck out of the White House at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch a stagecoach back to his house in order to avoid Thomas Jefferson, because he hated him that much. In 1829, after a landslide general election, John Quincy Adams ran away from Andrew Jackson. We've got then 1841, someone called Martin Van Buren. Has anybody ever heard of this guy?
Yes, I've heard of him. Yes.
Never heard of him. Never heard of him.
In a film, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't turn up for reasons unknown, and nobody cares because nobody knows who he is. In 1869, Andrew Jackson had a cabinet meeting rather than watch Ulysses S. Grant get his job. And in 1921, Woodrow Wilson was too ill. Now, apart from Wilson, the other 5 were all 1-term presidents. They all said, well, I'm not sticking around. I've been embarrassed. I've been humiliated. I'm off. But Trump's is the first proper strop for 150 years.
We're very lucky that he didn't actually just delay Air Force One leaving a bit. And at the very moment that Biden is sworn in, running Air Force One really low over the Capitol. Was Biden, except and whatever 500 million decibels sounds like. Oh, we're back with Amy Klobuchar.
The senator from Minnesota. The senator from Minnesota.
Emma knows who she is. She's the chairman of the Inauguration Committee and is in charge of these whole proceedings that we're watching today with great glee. Now,
a bit much asking her to sing after Lady Gaga and J-Lo, isn't it?
What a pair of people to follow as well. A very difficult gig, I would have thought, to be running. Now,
Here we go. This is it.
Here we go. This is the moment.
This is it.
Silence in court, folks.
Hopefully, our social media gremlin will put the sound up for us. There we go. There's a baby crying.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Oh, thank God.
Word perfect.
Thank God.
Thank
God it's over. It's over. It's over.
Bear in mind,
it's over.
That's quite a name as well.
Robinette sounds like a 1970s caravan, doesn't it? Or a really bad drag queen. Emma, have you ever stayed in a Robinette?
No, I haven't stayed in a Robinette, but I slightly wish I had. I've heard they have flashing toilets and everything.
They've got a space age, Cold War space race type caravan. They've got little chrome fixtures and everything else.
He's already surpassed Trump because Trump got as far as I will faithfully execute.
Those are the exact same words that Trump said 4 years ago, and obviously made absolutely no difference to his later decision to try and overthrow the Constitution. Mark, do you think that he's actually going to be able to hold this up?
Well, Biden?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even want to think about it because it's just he's gone. That horrible foul thing. It's like if the house has been on fire. And the firemen have put everything out. You don't then start worrying about whether what exact things are there. Whether I don't know. That analogy is not going anywhere, is it? But you know, I mean, it's just you're just pleased that this maniac, or a bear. There's been a bear in the house, and you. Oh Jesus! And 4 years the bastard's been going round and round. It's eating your kids, everything. You get rid of the bear, and then if someone at that moment says, "Well, what do you think the new pet's going to be like?" You're not. I've not thought about that yet.
He's
Of
not
course,
quite a pet, but sorry.
The thing we can now look forward to is how fast all the lawsuits now drop on Donald. Start the clock. Start the clock.
Facing at least 9 criminal and civil investigations into his tax affairs, into fraud. Question to Rory Bremner: first female Vice President Kamala Harris in US history. I'm not sure what the question is. Can you do an impression of Kamala Harris yet?
Do my impression of Kamala? No, get Jan Ravens or Deborah Stevenson. No, I was going to take you up on the lawsuit point, because I think, he didn't pardon himself. He didn't pardon his relatives. And I think part of it was because they were worried that he would pardon them for things that they didn't realize they were going to be charged for. And the prosecutors would be going, oh, hang on, there was that. Yeah, we'd forgotten about that one. And so it was kind of like pardoning them was already an admission of guilt. But you do look at the people around him, and I think, is it eight of his advisors? Paul Manafort.
I think Joe's going to speak. The 46th
Yep, sure. I'm going to shut up.
His first words. He's had his injection, and off he goes.
Speech of his life. Here it comes.
Come on, Joe. Bring us together, mate. You're nearly out of Jaffa cakes. Hurry up as well.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence,
25,000 soldiers.
My distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Strong and confident voice, Joe.
So
Good.
now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic,
racist,
and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken. The oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we the people who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities.
before we
Much to
die.
repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself. A cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make healthcare secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America. We've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever, not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. If you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans, all Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth.
I remember that.
Recent weeks and months
Remember the truth?
have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders. Leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, or rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges.
Good line.
And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example.
Ooh, lovely. That's a good line.
We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all of those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and coworkers. We'll honor them for becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this.
Sing it, Joe.
The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. And I'll give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch, but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
Well, that was the inauguration speech of the 46th President of the US, basically an old man addressing some flags and some people watching abroad, a bit like Winston Churchill in Care Home, really, just wandering about, muttering aphorisms. Mark, do you think that, I mean, that speech is obviously trying to unify and bring people together and move forward. Is that going to have convinced any of the redneck MAGA, our election was stolen supporters, that they really want to cooperate with this new dangerous station?
I very much doubt it. I think he should have. When he said it was about the song, he was going to quote lyrics from a song. I thought, oh, this is your Choose Bossy Bot by Stormzy, or 99 Problems by Jay-Z. I thought he was going to do. Yeah, it's all right. It's sort of. I think that the bits where you sort of think, oh yeah, this is going somewhere, is where he's obviously making reference to Trump about the lies. We're going to return to the truth, and we're not going to those sorts of those little references clearly, and obviously when he was talking about Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation and so on, that is directly in response to Black Lives Matter. So those odd moments, I needed a lot. Obviously he's not going to be doing the sort of thing I would want him to do, really, or that most of us would want it. Because most of us would want him to take those things on. You can't. It's difficult, isn't it? I don't know. The best of us. How do you? He's done that sort of thing about unity, but that isn't what those 40 million people who think the election was stolen think. They don't want unity.
Yeah, and exactly, and Emma as well. His record doesn't show an awful lot of what Trump would call dangerous socialism. This is a guy who has previously voted against gay marriage. He's voted against gays in the military.
Yeah.
He's voted against busing, the business of moving black school children into white schools, paid for by the government to improve racial integration. He's not generally, doesn't reckon as being the most progressive person out there. Can he do what he needs to do?
I don't. He's not remotely progressive. I mean, this is the thing that I always find hilarious when people on the right in America call Democrats rabid socialists, because I think if they were here, they would almost all of them entirely, apart from maybe AOC and Bernie Sanders, be in the Conservative Party, and American Democrats are very conservative people, and Joe Biden has been in politics for 40 years, and he is also a very conservative person. And but I kind of think it doesn't matter. What America needs now is a grandpa. That is exactly what it needs. It needs somebody who is very experienced. It needs somebody who isn't obsessed with his own cult. It needs somebody whose entire life has been devoted to public service. And I think that is why I think everyone feels a sigh of relief that we have Joe Biden now instead of the tangerine lunatic that has just left. By the way, Eric Oswald, hello. He's just said, do you think Biden's election will affect UK policy in the near future? This is actually the interesting question, because Biden has made a big thing about being Irish. I think he will always favour Ireland over the UK. He's not a fan of Brexit, and that's going to be the big thing that we have to see unfold over the coming weeks and months, is what his attitude towards the UK is exactly going to be.
Exactly.
I half agree with you there, Emma, but I think that as conservative as Biden is, that's not the whole story of this election, because the Democrat Party is different to any point, certainly in the last 50 years, because it's had this influx of young people that have meant that AOC and people like that. I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is, I would say, the most impressive political figure of my lifetime. I think she's extraordinary.
Yeah, she is.
And the woman Stacey Abrams, who was one of the
she's amazing. Stacey Abrams is amazing.
Yeah,
imagine Stacey Abrams as president.
You know, and I think that Biden's election campaign and Biden's sort of program is much more radical, even though he personally, Susie's completely right, his record is very, very conservative. But I think that the people that have been brought in through those people, Obama and people like that, and Bernie Sanders, all these people have changed the nature of the Democrat Party, and they're winning elections a lot and so on for the Senate and stuff. So I think that there's a huge machine inside the Democrat Party that is much more young, that's much younger, more radical than at any point for a long time, probably.
I would agree with that, but I also think that Joe Biden was probably the best person to put up against Donald Trump, just because he's the safest. He's the classic "don't spook the horses" candidate, and he's not exciting, and there's nothing that sort of is going to thrill people or go, "Oh, hooray! What's he going to do next week?" No, but I think he is the natural reaction to the last 4 years.
Yeah, a requirement for the grown-up to re-enter the room and please to try and clean up the mess that the toddler left behind. Now, the person who's speaking at the moment on the Capitol is a lady called Amanda Gorman. She is America's first youth poet laureate. And obviously a person of colour, so that's obviously something else that probably wouldn't have happened at Trump's inauguration. And Tim asks, and this is probably one for Rory, do you think Biden's election will have a detrimental effect on satirical comedians' material for news-based panel shows? Hashtag pray for high news for you. Rory, is it possible to do an impression of Joe Biden that doesn't involve mocking his stammer?
Oh, yes, of course it is. And I'm not going to start with doing one on day one, although he does have a habit of when he makes a list, he'll say something, then he'll say, after he's come out with the first point, he'll then say, point number one. And then he'll say, yeah, point number 2. So he does. So it takes time for a voice and for a character kind of settle in the public ear, if you like. And also, I kind of think it's a bit weird, although we're in a situation similar to when Blair took over in 1997. That, you know, we'd had 18 years of Thatcher and Major, and it feels like we've had 18 years of Trump. And well, you know, on day 2 to turn around and say, right, okay, let's lay into this guy, because you kind of don't want to do that. You want to just, as he says, hear me out. I mean, there's interesting, talking about Biden's voice, there were 2 moments where his accent sort of unwittingly gave us kind of interesting point, when he said, "We're a nation under guard," and I thought, did he say a nation under guard or a nation under God? And I thought, no, you are a nation under guard at the moment. And he also, when he said, "It's time for baldness," and I thought that's exactly the point that Emma was making, that it is time for baldness. It's time for the old guy to come together. And we've had 2 examples, very different examples of extreme charisma. Barack Obama, who I always felt, you know, spoke about the better angels, and he would lift people up. And, you know, I'm sure there were parts of it where all of us, we were waiting for a moment of rhetoric which would really soar and catch, and you'd think, that's it. That is the power of a great speaker, a great orator. But that's not what Joe Biden does. We've had those. It was, in a way, he was like a teacher, almost reason. He's trying to persuade people, not inspire, but just persuade people. Look, can't you just be reasonable? And I really, really hope that works. And I wonder if Rory is right. Rory, yeah,
we've all had that supply teacher.
we have,
and we've all ignored him.
Jim Carrey on SNL does a really good Joe Biden, and he sort of plays him like the old man with the aviator shades, who has suddenly can afford an Aston Martin and wants everyone to know about it. So I kind of like that portrayal of Biden. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the comedy shows deal with him.
It's interesting because they will then establish a kind of characterization which will form itself in the public mind, rather like, you know, when they made John Major grey and shoveling the peas around the plate and stuff. You know, but it takes a little while. I mean, you know, I'd love to be coming out of the block straight away with a Biden, but I need to watch. And I think, you know, it's for all of a little bit of calm, a little bit of humility, and you know, I just hope this works. I think Mark maybe come out being really fiery. Would that just rile up the other side? Is it somebody who says, look, we have got to listen to each other?
Rory, at what point did you start doing the brilliant Blair with on the circuit telly, which was, I think that defines people's image of Blair. I mean, it was at the risk of being grovelling, but it was.
Well, funny enough, weirdly, I think where it really well, I mean, we were aware of that sort of quality of his voice. You know, it was that sort of, you know, T for two, of course, T for two, but also 2 for T, and that was that. And he was all things to all men. And we once early on we were trying to do a sketch about Tony Blair, and it involved somebody nailing jelly to a wall. And of course, in came this poor props people, and we said, "Go on, could you nail some jelly to a wall?" And of course, guess what? You can't. So he was standing there for about 20 minutes. I can't do this. I can't do it. And of course, we'd asked him to do something which is really impossible. But the point where it really took off, as far as Blair was concerned, was when we realised that the key thing to that Blair government was Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell. And it was that was the very heart. That was what it's all about. It's Tony Blair, Alistair Campbell, maybe 1 or 2 others, maybe Philip Gould, the pollster, and Peter Mandelson. But it was that very tight sofa government, and that was how it was. It was when we had established a relationship between Blair and Campbell that I think that took off. And I was very lucky because we had Burden Fortune, of course, around who had that brilliant way in those interviews of picking off so many of the other issues and not making everything about one man or ad hominem, but they were sort of about the culture, about all these captains of industry and the discipline of the market, and they could take that apart. But I think it was with Blair, it was with Andy Dunn when he started playing Alistair Campbell, and I did Tony Blair, and we just improvised a lot in an office, rather like, you know, later became the thick of it was a little bit, you know, again, sort of looked semi-improvised in a room. But I think that's when we I think with the first when we started to do it, somebody said, "How did you know that they have fruit in the office and they eat apples?" And we didn't. We just happened to have that on set, and we were just improvising and started to eat an apple or something. And it came back from Blair's office that that's what they did, and so we sort of felt that it's actually, in some way, we were representing what was really going on at the heart of government. Does that answer the question?
Slightly. I think you're optimistic if you think that Saturday Night Live aren't going to come out with the president in a bath chair this weekend, because they're totally going to.
Yeah.
Now, Alan is a son of a nuclear test veteran, one of the people that I've been writing about in the past. His father's at Operation Dominic on Christmas Island in the 60s. And he says, how do you think the Biden-Harris administration will handle the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, which is due to come into force on Friday? This is a very niche question, Alan. Well done for smashing your issue straight into the presidential inauguration. This is about asking the TPNW, basically, once you have 50 countries that have signed it, then theoretically nuclear weapons worldwide become illegal. And it has been ratified by the 50th nation, so it should now be illegal to hold any nuclear weapons. Obviously, every country that's got nuclear weapons is ignoring it. The British government has told Alan only this week that we're going to ignore it, we're going to keep our nuclear weapons, blah, blah. But I think there's a deeper question in here. Biden is obviously not going to get rid of his 58 nuclear warheads, because what kind of lunatic would do that if you are the last remaining superpower? But how is he going to deal diplomatically with Russia, with China, with these other countries that have massive nuclear stockpiles, huge economic power? They're coming up behind America as a superpower almost. Emma, what do you think Biden can actually do? Not do you want him to do in office? What can he actually do?
Well, very little.
Oh no! Let's all go home.
I don't think that there is. I mean, this is the problem with things like this: is that he can stand up and say, "Do you know what? Yeah, we've got nuclear weapons, but we can't get rid of our nuclear weapons until you guys get rid of your nuclear weapons." But we make a commitment. Let's say he says, but we make a commitment not to make any more nuclear weapons. How's about you commit to not making any more nuclear weapons? He might be able to get them to agree to that. But there is absolutely not a chance that China or Russia are going to get rid of their nuclear weapons. Is there? I mean, realistically?
No, none whatsoever.
And if that's not going to happen, then realistically, there's no chance of America getting rid of theirs. I mean, I don't know why we've got them. I really don't see the point of us having them, but I can't see our government getting rid of them either.
I think you're only going to reduce the numbers rather than, it's a bit like this is this is a very vulgar analogy, but story once about a porn star who was supposed to have a male porn star was supposed to have the largest the largest member in history, and he was spotted by a group of people who were in a bar, and one of them was very proud of the length of his, and so he said, look, go and have a competition. And so that meant asking the porn star to get out his member, and he refused, of course. And eventually they said, look, just take out enough to win. Okay, so in a way, but there is a point to this, because in a way it's sort of saying the best you're going to hope for is to say, look, can you just negotiate, just keep enough to win. And get rid. You don't need to just. You only have to blow the world up once. You don't have to blow it up 30 times.
Why didn't Joe Biden say that in his speech?
Sorry, Mark.
Why didn't Joe Biden say exactly that in his speech?
Didn't have the right writers, obviously. And we've got a comment from Michael Fletcher here. I'm not sure if Michael Fletcher is his real name or if that's his real car. Biden didn't convince 80+ million to vote for him.
He did.
Million.
He did, I'm afraid.
We're allowed to be honest. No one's stopping me, mate. And I've got a bottle of gin. I'm as honest as I ever get right now. Okay. You may actually have some viewers.
Oh, Michael Fletcher.
Many viewers, the biggest viewers, lots of viewers, the biggest number of viewers in presidential inauguration mirror Facebook Live history.
You know, I would really love Michael Fletcher to tell me what it is about Donald Trump that he looks up to.
The hair?
What is there in that man that you think is admirable? What is there about him that is dignified? What is there about him that commands any scrap of respect?
Right. If Michael responds, we'll get our little social media backroom boys to put his comment online, and Emma can engage.
Please, yes, I'll engage with you over there. Happy to.
Michael / Ivan, whatever he might be. Remember, if you are a Russian troll, anybody, you've been fired now. Anne says, reading these comments, you can tell who are the Trumpsters. I call them Trumpkins, Anne, because it's just an awful lot easier. Now, we need to remember that Donald Trump, he lost Congress in 2018. He lost the election in 2020. He lost the Senate in 2021. He's lost more than 50 court cases since the election, trying to overturn.
60. He's lost 60.
I'm so sorry. He's lost 60 court cases, even more of a loser than I realised. He is quite genuinely now the biggest loser of all time. Eddie the Eagle Edwards has had more personal success and perhaps more liquid assets than Donald Trump does, genuinely. All right, because Eddie the Eagle was at least British ski jumping champion for 13 years.
Yes, he was.
Unbeaten, right? Best person in the whole country at sliding off mountains. Nobody else was going to do it. Trump's worse than him. Now, Ruben asks, do you think Biden is the lesser of two evils? Will he walk the talk? Because Trump did quite a lot, considering he couldn't talk.
I don't think Biden is remotely evil. There was no choice here. There was no choice here. It was between someone who is vaguely competent and experienced and between someone who's an idiot.
Yeah, who's a genuine maniac. Exactly.
I mean, literally, he's like, Donald Trump is like the bottom of a bin that's become sentient. That's what he was.
He's walking
the bottom of a bin.
We'd like to apologise to anyone from Ofcom who's watching this, because no, we're not balanced. Now, Mark, do you think they must find something? What was Donald Trump's greatest achievement in office? Let's find one. Come on.
Well, you can't, can you? Because it's that sort of, to ask that, and I know you know this, but to ask that question sort of suggests that everything comes in compartments, that there's 100,000 different things. Some of them are good and some of them are bad, and none, because the man is an inveterate liar, so therefore he lies about everything. He's one of those people that you sort of come across in life sometimes who lie so much that they lie even when there's no need to lie.
Yeah,
he just can't help. He doesn't even think what is the true story here before I'm going to say it. So that's at the start of it, and he's and also I think where he's different. See, at one level, you could argue that it's not right to sort of suggest that Trump's the worst ever president. He didn't back a CIA-backed coup in Chile. He didn't invade Iraq. He didn't drop nuclear bombs on Hiroshima. There's a lot. He's not invaded various Spanish islands and so on, and all the other things that terrible people did. So
he just had terrible handshakes, like this one with Emmanuel Macron.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think he's done worse than that. But what he has done is he's sort of broken he's gone outside of the rules that did exist about how you can become elected. And he's created, therefore, a space for genuine fascism, which is not, and I always get frustrated that word gets thrown around too easily. But genuine, those people who invaded the government building, that's fascism, that's, and he's left a legacy of quite a lot of those people who really do want to try and build a power base from sort of being street thugs. And
I know it's sort of amazing, isn't it, Mark? Like if you were in public office and you had people turning up with Camp Auschwitz T-shirts on and making the white supremacy sign and all of this, and the Ku Klux Klan really thinking you're great, wouldn't you just stop and pause and just think, hang on a minute, what have I done here? But he didn't.
And I mean, and we love you. We love you all. You're very special.
Oh, there's a
There are
brilliant
people with 6MWD on their T-shirts. Oh, so 6MWE. 6 million weren't enough.
Tim Coleman, I am going to put on my Nostradamus costume, and I think it might be Nikki Haley or Mitt Romney might be back.
Really?
And I'll say Tim Coleman.
Possible.
Biden won't run in 2024.
No, I don't think he will either.
It will be Kamala.
Yeah.
I wonder if generally over the last 30 years, with each election, the Republicans have put someone up more crazy each time. So I think they're going to find the bloke in a buffalo costume.
Or Joe Exotic.
Be out by then.
The QAnon and the Quine.
It could be Joe Exotic.
Yeah.
Actually, slightly saner
Tiger
president.
is the running mate.
And do you know what's worrying? Joe Exotic might win.
Yeah. And it'll be quite funny.
That's what people said about Trump.
Yeah.
This is how we got where we are, Mark. People
I know.
like that.
I know.
Never again. Never do something because we think it's funny.
I'm really
Now,
sorry.
very quickly, before we wrap up, I want to ask each of you, what do you think? What do you want Joe Biden to do in his period in office? Rory, you first.
I think we could do with something Emma's been saying all along. I think a period of calm. But that's hard to do when everyone is shouting, is to bring people together. But I think he has shown already that he's prepared to. I think there was the key moment of his speech where he said that we want to bring America together to engage with the rest of the world, not to solve yesterday's problems, but to solve tomorrow's challenges and to lead by example. I think that's something that for America, it's going to lead by example in tomorrow's challenges. Obviously, Corona is today's challenge, but climate change, and he's already shown a big commitment to a big investment in that. And there are a lot of jobs to be created in that. And I think that's one area where America can lead by example.
Okay, Emma, what about you? What do you want Joe to do?
I want to be not interested in American politics for the next 4 years. That's what I want. I want to not have to think about it on a daily basis. Thank you. Please, Mr. Joe Biden. That's what I would like.
Please end Emma Kennedy's anxiety issue. Get on with the rest of her life.
Yeah, please.
To get off Twitter and do some proper work.
Please.
Mark, what about you? Because the end of Donald Trump's reign surely means that there are fewer jokes to tell, fewer points to make, fewer rants to have on stage. What are you going to do if the guy who's running the free world and perhaps doing it a bit wrong is, just an old granddad?
Well, as we go back to the sort of business of Rory with Blair, he found a way, and in the end it was brilliant and it was better. And also, you don't want I think it would be a bit selfish from a comedic point of view to go, well, on the one hand, a couple more jokes. On the other hand, he has unleashed a mass wave of fascism and white supremacism. But there are a couple of jokes. That'd be quite
That's the difference between comedians and journalists, because journalists are going, God, we're going to put it in the paper tomorrow. And comedians are like, no, this is fine. This is okay. I don't want to tell any more jokes. It's too much fascism.
I've never been, this is a really selfish thing, but I've never been able to do Trump. And I like to be, I stand, humbly before a true master at such a profession. But I like to be able to do most, have a go at a few people. I've never been able to do Trump. And it's been really, I've sat in this room trying to get him for ages, and anyone can do Trump. The next door neighbour can do Trump. I've just not been able to do him. So,
but Mark, listen, I mean, you could do a really good topical one. Trump chose to boycott this inauguration. I think you should do your Jeffrey boycott.
No, I'm not going to crowbar Jeffrey boycott. The president's inauguration. That'd be terrible. That'd be like something the impressionists in 1978 would do. Well,
I try and do you, Mark. I sound like.
What would they be wearing?
I don't know why. But listen, there's a brilliant piece, wasn't there, by Tim Snyder about called "The American Abyss." I don't know if you've seen that. It's a terrific piece, and it was Mark's point he's talking about fascism and stuff like that. But in his piece, he said, that post-truth, he said, if you give up the post-truth, he says, it's pre-fascism. He says, well, if you give up on the truth, you concede power to someone with wealth and charisma to create spectacle instead. And thank God, that has gone today. And he said he hopes I hope it's not going to be for too long, God, you know, it's actually I'm so pleased I don't have to do Trump again for a bit.
I genuinely think he's not coming back. I genuinely think that.
There's a question. So what happens? Is he going to get nobbled in New York?
I think he's going to spend the rest of his life involved in fighting off legal cases. And don't forget, Deutsche Bank want their money back. He's about to be bankrupt. And
the Senate, he will be tried after 100 days, won't he?
Yeah, I think.
You don't try somebody for that.
I think there is a real chance that Mitch McConnell will instruct to convict, and if he's convicted, then that's it. He's barred from public life for the rest.
Oh, that's marvelous! And bankrupt? Will he be homeless?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Deutsche Bank are about to take Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower, so that's going to be fun.
You've also still got Ivanka,
yes,
Eric, the thing that is Eric, and Donald Jr., all of whom share their father's lack of awareness of what's going on in the world and a desperate belief in their own, especially Ivanka, their own political careers. So who knows what will happen there? But I hope that the thing that Biden will do when he's in office is the thing that Obama said he did under his administration, which is that every time people went in a room and had to discuss something, Biden was the contrarian. He came along and said, but why and how? And are you sure? And checked it. And he said he was the best way of combating the groupthink you get in any administration or government when people who are all alike and feel aligned start agreeing on something. Biden would come in and go, no, really? Are you sure? And make people double check their workings, if you see what I mean. And if he can do that on the international stage, if he can do that at NATO and the UN, which so famously laughed at Donald when he gave his
that was wonderful.
Beautiful, wasn't it? Beautiful, the best address to the assembly ever. Then perhaps the free world will have someone in charge of it who knows vaguely how to push things along in roughly the right direction. We've got to remember, we haven't had time to mention, but here we have someone who is a stammerer, all right, who is now president of the free world, who is president of the US, leader of the free world, like 1% of people on the planet. He finds it has this neurological condition that can be hereditary, that makes it difficult to get your words out sometimes. And there are going to be children worldwide now who are going, oh, thank God. Apparently, it's possible to go on and give public speeches and get through this. But
there are also a bunch of unhinged, narcissist, egomaniacs who no longer have a role model.
Yes, the person who's enabled fascism and racism, and I've noticed myself, even in the middle of nowhere out here, since Trump's been elected, attacks on women, verbal attacks, physical attacks on women seem to have jumped since 2016, since that man came into public prominence. So it's a good thing that he's gone. But importantly, while we wrap up, the White House has been fumigated, possibly some kind of exorcism carried out, maybe a flamethrower. And I do hope that the new president has ordered that the mattress be changed, because as we all know, Donald Trump has some proclivities in that direction, especially when he's not the one who's going to be sleeping in the mattress.
Has he got issues?
He likes peeing on them.
Paying ladies.
I wouldn't open that letter from Trump without wearing gloves, by the way.
Yes, he has written a letter to Mr. Biden, which will surely come out in the next few days, probably in crayon, no doubt with some sticky fingerprints all over it as well. We'll have to wait to see what's in that. But he said that he's going to be back in some form, or perhaps he said in uniform. Who knows? Maybe an orange one or a black one. We'll have to wait and see. But thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We've had an hour of your time. We've had an hour of Rory and Emma and Mark's time, and it's probably time to let me go. And I need this bottle of gin. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thank you, every one of those Americans who voted for the other guy. Thank you from the bottom of Britain's heart for actually doing a decent thing. And yeah, you have all our best wishes for the next 4 years, and hopefully he actually survives them and doesn't spend too much of it asleep, but does get a nice nap every afternoon, because our Prime Minister has one of those, and it seems to be doing him wonders. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for joining me, guys. Bye-bye, and we'll see you.
Bye.
And Mark, shall we write some jokes tomorrow about Biden then?
Yeah. We'll have tonight off.
Good luck with that. All right. Great to see you all.